Hi friends, in this episode you're going to hear me helping Julia, who has been struggling with creating financial stability in her gorgeous heart-led equestrian training business. This is the first in a series of on-air coaching episodes I'm calling Regenerative Unsticking Points, and you can sign up to take part for free right now. So whatever stage of your career transition you might be stuck in, whether it's finding the courage to finally quit, help with defining your vision, or perhaps you're searching for that unique regenerative niche, this is your chance to get my expert advice and define clear action steps to get you unstuck and moving forward into your regenerative career. At the same time, you'll be helping other listeners who can learn from your story. Go to regenerativeworklife.com/sticking point to book your session right now. Welcome to the Regenerative Work-Life podcast. If you are ready to make the leap out of your corporate job and into purposeful regenerative work, this is the show for you. As you've probably discovered, transitioning into regenerative work is a lot more complicated than going on a job board and sending off your CV. This journey you are embarking on means taking risks, going against the grain, overcoming challenges, and writing your own script. It takes entrepreneurial muscle, powerful vision, and a willingness to change. Having a mentor by your side makes all the difference. I am your host, Alisa Murphy. I have worked with hundreds of impact-focused businesses and individuals, and I am here to help you. Let's take things one step at a time as I show you how to quit corporate, find your vision, and successfully transition into regenerative work. Here we go. Welcome back. Today is a Regenerative Unsticking Point episode. I am joined by Julia from the UK, who has an incredible business delivering horse-led learning for individual and team development. Julia has a specific sticking point that is holding her back from the full realization of her business. And today we're going to get her unstuck and moving forward into her regenerative work life. Julia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very happy to have you. Let's start, as I always do, with vision. I'd like you to imagine yourself forward 6 months from now. Where do you want to be in your work life?
Okay, so 6 months from now puts me dead in winter. Winter is an interesting season for me because the majority of my work that I love is done outdoors. Winter, I have to flip my model so that I'm either taking downtime or I am picking up projects to keep me out of trouble. So ideally, where I would like to be in 6 months' time is having some time off and getting ready to plan for a really successful 2015, as opposed to worrying about where the revenue is going to come from through the winter, if that makes sense.
It does. So you want to be in a good place in terms of income and a good place that you are actually able to take that rest and enjoy it and look ahead with confidence. What kind of things will have to have been achieved in the time leading up to the winter in order for you to really take that rest?
I think it's got to do with sales predictability of my sales pipeline. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would like my horses to have had a really successful season running workshops and be ready for some rest, which they were last year, which was amazing to see. They actually dictated to me the last day of work, which was a wonderful thing to see. I need to be able to shore up my business. We're quite cost heavy because of the expenses involved in the horses. So really by September, I really need to know that I've got enough finance to keep us going right the way through. So that comes back to pipeline, sales, and the activity that I do now really needs to earn me money.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm hearing that there is a very strong financial focus to
Yeah,
what needs to be done in the season coming up to
yeah,
winter.
yeah.
What is getting in your way of that financial stability and success that you're looking for?
I personally, I'm finding it really difficult to create the volume of business that I need to keep us head above water and profitable. Um, I think there's several reasons for that. The first is that because my business is not just sitting at a desk focusing on one thing or delivering from my desk, it involves a lot of mental creativity as well as a lot of physical effort in terms of the looking after, the herd and maintaining the well-being. It never feels like I have enough targeted time to reach the route to the right people to get great results. Everything I do feels very hit and miss and very inconsistent. Um, so that's probably the first thing, and I'm really struggling to fathom out how to do a better job at it because sales is my background. But the world has changed so that it's difficult to reach people. It's I'm finding it that hard without the digital marketing um, of a large business. So without being able to churn thousands of emails out to people to generate interest, it's a very difficult situation, and it's a difficult business to sell. The concept of inviting people into a space where they acknowledge that they want learning, and then to do it in a completely different and novel way is quite a big ask. So it
Mm.
feels almost like I'm sort of at the bottom of a mountain all the time, and make very little progress.
It strikes me that in what you said that it's a very different type of business. And you've already mentioned a number of things just in the few minutes that we've been talking about. You've talked about seasonality. I love that when I said look forward 6 months, you immediately went to where the season was. You went like, oh, okay, I'll be at the end of Q4. Like I'll be in the
Yeah.
depths of winter. You spoke about seasonality. You talked about how you are led by the horses, how they told you that it was the last day of work. And I think that relationship that you have with them is so palpable.
Mm.
And you're clearly coming from a very heart-centered place with this business. And there are concepts in here that aren't immediately obvious to people. It's not something that they're necessarily going to have any kind of grounding in. It's kind of a new way of learning for people, a new way of interacting. And the thing that really strikes me as you're talking about the challenges that you're having with sales is that this new kind of business that is rooted in that connection with animals, that's rooted in seasonality and rooted in passion, really calls for a new way of selling. And you already mentioned that it's not sort of viable to be doing this kind of like high volume mass marketing kind of efforts, but I also don't feel that they would fit. I don't get a sense from you that that's part of who you are. So I'm wondering if you were to extend that relationship that you have with the horses, with the seasons, with being outdoors, and the kind of qualities that you find in there, what might that look like in a sales context?
That's massive. Um, what you've just played back to me is very interesting. The fact that it is a heartfelt or heart-centered sale, and the fact that it is a difficult concept for people to get their head around. It's just all of a sudden having that played back just sounds completely different from the story that I tell myself in my head. Um,
Okay.
how the answer to the question without me sort of going away and reflecting on it is I don't know. I
Let me
because I
jump in.
haven't. Yeah,
What
go
is
on.
the story that you're telling yourself in your head about sales right now?
It's about numbers. it's about it's about volume. It's about numbers. It's about contacts. It's as it is traditionally with the majority of businesses. The more contacts you have, the higher your conversion is likely to be. Um, And so that is what I guess my head is holding on to. But at the same time, I feel completely blocked, constantly completely blocked. It's every activity I sit down to do around that just leaves me feeling confused and blocked. I can't even word it a different way, which then leads me into a spiral of feeling that I'm not working hard enough. And
Yeah.
then what I have to do is knowing what I know about nature is to get outside. So my partner's even said to me, well, why don't you get somebody to put the horses to bed for you every night, and then it'll give you extra hours at your desk. And I said, I can't do that, because I have to end my day and I have to do my clearing, and it has to be with them. My day starts with them and it ends with them. And if they're not in the middle of it and we're not working together, it just feels like a complete ball ache.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much here, Julia, but I feel like we've gone straight to the heart of that sticking point. That what I'm hearing is that you are trying to market and sell your business with a very corporate mindset. I know you're not in a corporate role, but that I think that mindset is very much influencing how you're trying to do sales. And I was going to ask the question, but I don't even need to ask it. I can sense how it feels to you when you think of numbers and when you think of volume and you think of conversions. I can just feel the energy of how uncomfortable that feels in your body. And that is why you're getting blocked. That's why you're sitting down to do it and feeling like you just don't know where to start. You don't know what you're doing. Like you said, it's just a block. And it's because there is such a disconnect between the kind of business that you're creating, the kind of knowing that you have around animals and around nature, the relationship you have with the horses, and then the way that you're marketing, because you're borrowing that from a system that tells us this is what effective marketing looks like, but you already know that it's not effective for you because you've been trying it and it's not giving you that consistency that you're looking for, right? And you have a background in sales. This should be easy for you, and it's not. And I think that's not because you're not getting it right or you're not trying hard enough. I don't even think it's that you're not making enough time for it. I think it's that you're not rooting it in the same place as you are when you talk about, I start my day with the horses, I end my day with the horses. What would it look like to sell your business with the horses, to market with the horses? Just, just sort of whatever comes to mind, however outlandish or unfeasible. Like what would that look like to bring that marketing and sales bit to the horses?
Oh, we're talking digital video content, I guess. I'd started the week thinking that what I needed to do was to take my messages out, and to record messages to, the interesting thing is that when I talk to people, everything I do makes complete sense. But getting to those people is very, very difficult. And so my thoughts were, if I'm credible, and I mean, I've got a great track record, people know who I am. The concept of equine learning is developing. We work fantastically, and I put everything I own on my business because of the results that we're getting. So I had in my mind this week to go out and still just with my phone recording messages with the horses, stories from the fields, messages speaking to particular audiences to get them interested. Then I have another block, which is, am I worthy to put these messages out? And where do they even go? Who's actually watching? Because it just feels at the moment like there is, and I'm making an assumption here. So this is something else you might want to pick me up on. I'm making an assumption that nobody's interested and nobody's watching. So I don't know whether that comes back to that level of worthiness.
Yeah. Okay, so, so you already, from a kind of practical standpoint, you already have some ideas for how you could maybe change up what you're doing with your marketing, like doing these recordings there with the horses, just telling the stories from the field. I think that absolutely feels like it's heading in a better direction already. But I really want us to take a look at what you just said, which
Yeah.
is, am I worthy
Mm.
to put these messages out there?
Mm.
I mean, why wouldn't you be worthy?
Gosh, that's quite tough. On the surface of it, everything makes sense. But I do wonder if I am psychologically holding something back which prevents energy flowing in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to flick that switch, because this is something that has come up for me before in terms of worthiness of success. And I'm not sure if it's common or not. And there is something in there about being authentic, or actually believing that I am as good as I say I am.
Mm-hmm.
I constantly I've had feedback in the last week. Somebody very kindly reviewed some work for me. It's a new product that I'm looking to get out there. And her feedback to me was, I'm not getting a sense of you in this. If you were to tell people how incredible you are, but it's not there, but that's typical you. So you could, if you were being kind, if I was being kind to myself, I could say I'm quite modest about what I do. There is, in the work that I do, there is no room for ego. Ego with horses doesn't work. Authenticity does work. And
So,
I'm not sure how to answer it. I'm really struggling.
yeah. Well, look, I want to pause and just thank you for, just applaud your vulnerability in this, because anyone who is pursuing a kind of highly personal, heart-led vision for their career or their business, when you do that, it's always going to bring up a lot of deep-rooted issues. And I think
Mm.
that's often really overlooked, because we sort of tell ourselves like, oh, well, it's business, or it's work. And when we say that, there's this sort of implication of like, well, it should just be straightforward. And it's not. It's personal and it's messy. And we have to go to these kind of places because these are the things that are getting in our way. These are almost always going to be the roots of the sticking point. And I want to offer, I agree with everything you said about, authenticity, and about, I think people really will connect to you and you being the sort of heart of this business. But I want to offer actually a kind of slightly radical way of coming at this, because you said something really interesting. You said, I don't know how to flip the switch. So that's what that's telling me, is that sort of energetically what you're looking for is a flip switch. So, I could sit here and just as your friend is, tell you how incredible I think you are, and how much people are going to want to hear that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to flip things for you and that you're going to start believing that.
Mm.
So if we look at this idea of flipping the switch, what if for a moment we kind of take you out of the picture a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and we look at what you've created and what you do with your work? I want to bring you back to the purpose of your business.
Mm.
And I wonder if you could try to articulate for me why the work that you do matters.
Wow. that that is so easy. And And it's not always been easy. And this is not something a lot of people find easy. My purpose is simple, and that is to create a legacy for my children. Intertwined in what I do, everything that is who I am and what I achieve, right and wrong, good and bad, is for my children. And it's the only thing that I have for them. And I just want them to be very proud that we are changing lives out there, and doing it in a way of love and kindness. And there's something that has always been centered right from my childhood and my children's childhood is the horses. We were never privileged enough to have them, but we've always been very connected. And it just feels so right to be able to do it. The other thing you said about, I just had a bit of a shift in terms of stepping outside of the business and looking at what we've created, what I've created, sorry. I never thought I would have one horse, let alone 6 and a donkey. I never realised that I would be worthy enough to be in a long-term relationship and have beautiful children, and to have such an incredible skill set that helps, and I see people develop new knowledge about themselves when they're around me. And somehow that it doesn't feel real. It doesn't, it happens, but it doesn't like feel like it's really me. It's most bizarre.
You know, I'm so sort of switched on by this shift that I can already feel happening with you. It was so interesting to me that when I asked you about the purpose of your business, you said, "Oh, that's easy for me." And you're absolutely right that a lot of people really struggle to articulate that. And a lot of the
Yeah,
work that I do and have done in the past is about helping people to be able to articulate that. But you were there right away.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
suddenly you knew what that was about. And it even has started to unlock, because suddenly you're thinking, well, hold on a minute. Well, I am actually like, this is incredible that I have these horses, that I have the donkey, that I'm in this long-term relationship, I have these beautiful children. You know, really quickly you went from a place of asking, well, am I worthy, you know, to really sort of embracing the things that you have and that you've created for yourself. So I really think that purpose piece is going to be key for you, because it's creating a really noticeable energetic shift. So I want to bring us back to the marketing and sales piece.
Hmm.
What does it look like if you put that purpose right at the center of your marketing?
How do you mean it?
Have you ever, let's take it really literally for a moment.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah,
have you ever told that story about why you're doing the business, about the legacy that you want to leave for your children?
yeah. I'm quite verbal about it. Um, I think it's on the website. And my entrance into this work has been extremely personal in terms of a journey as well. Whether it's part of my brand and whether it would sell it to other people, I'm not sure about.
Why is that? Why do you, it's interesting, like why does that suddenly feel like, to you it feels very natural to put that personal story at the center of your business, but why do you feel like that won't connect with others?
People, I guess people are searching for their own solutions to their own problems. And what I'm constantly quite switched on about is understanding their needs and putting their needs at the forefront of everything I do. There is a pattern there for me as well, is that lack of focus on myself, myself, and sort of seeing things that if I do things for me, the output is it has an impact on others. I think what I do is focus so much on other people that I leave myself out of the equation because I just don't feel that I'm important enough, particularly when I'm a fixer and I can fix things for other people.
I mean, you've just said it right there, Julia. You're leaving yourself out of the equation, but you just said, when I do put the focus on me, then I'm able to help other people. And I think that's the connection that is missing from your marketing. And I know you maybe feel like it's really there as part of the story. You know, you said it's on the website, but for example, just from kind of having a look at some of your LinkedIn posts, I don't see your story really kind of front and center in your marketing. And I believe that it will be you and your story that will give people such a compelling entry point into your work, because it's completely different from if you come at this from the sort of outside in, you know, starting from their problems and working backwards, which is, you know, it's totally sort of a viable way of marketing. But then I think you're getting straight back into the challenges that you described. You're getting straight into the challenges of like, well, does someone even understand how equine learning works? How do I get into the basics of this? You know, are they comparing that to, I don't know, doing in-person training or online training? Or, you know, it puts you in a sort of very details kind of place and having to do a lot of education. I mean, my personal belief is that people, humans, even when they're representing a company or a team, they're people first, and they're looking to connect with another human being. And the more that you can put yourself out there and be vulnerable and be human and just share that kind of pure passion that you have for this business, honestly, people won't need to understand all the details. You know, they're not going to be needing to understand all the ins and outs. They're just going to be like, whatever this is, I want to be a part of that. However I'm feeling when I read Julia's posts, when I watch that video of her out there with the horses at dusk, telling the stories from the fields, I want that feeling, right? And then all the kind of minutiae of exactly what you're offering and exactly how it works, that all just becomes kind of backup data, because in their heart, they've already, you know, they've already connected with you. They already want to be doing this work. They just want to come and share in that experience. And it's, you know, for me, what you have the opportunity to do is share that experience with people before they ever make it anywhere near to your field. What's coming up for you?
Bravery, interestingly. That's the word that I have in my mind. From that point, my mind doesn't actually go to actions. It goes back to the herd and to individual members within the herd, and where I connect and where I see bravery, and it's everywhere, for different reasons. It's funny talking about getting back to nature and what we need. I very much, when I first entered into this work, the biggest thing that I experienced from my own time with horses a decade ago was the fact that I rarely asked people for support. And it's one of my, you know, stories as to people say, well, how did you get into this? How did you find out about this kind of work? And it was support. Now I tend to go to the horses when I am seeking energetic guidance. Let's call it that. And true to the nature of the most, they're just the most wonderful, intuitive animals that there are. There's always something there for me to learn and to interpret and to take on board. And that is where bravery, the word, took me back to the herd, back to thinking about, you know, what that might mean, how I am very proud that I can just walk into my 6 acres and let the horses know it's a work day, and they always show up ready. And when the day is done, they walk away They know they're just absolutely magnificent. And I don't think I tap into receiving the communication. I understand the communication, which is around their needs because they come first. And sometimes it's a bit of a wake-up call when I realise that they are trying to communicate something to me, not about them. And I think that's probably quite a nice place for me to start.
Mm-hmm. Which is also the whole essence of what you do, right?
Yeah.
If I understand it correctly, like it's all about what the horses have to teach people about themselves.
I know. It's crazy. How crazy am I? I just don't, it feels like I just don't want to bother them. It's weird because they have a hard job and they do work hard. They're not ridden horses, but it doesn't mean they don't work quite just as hard, you know?
Yeah, but just in that way that you learnt to ask for support for your business, I think you can ask the horses for their support on this. I think my kind of gut instinct is that they are waiting for you to listen to what they have to say about building that financial resilience and how you get that message out there.
Yeah, you're going to make me cry now. You're not going to make me cry. Putting the mirror up in front of me is quite an interesting feeling, particularly when you do it for other people so much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's time to turn some of that on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've gone to a lot of places today, Julia.
That's me. Sorry.
Oh, it's beautiful. I wonder if I think there's going to just be a lot for you to kind of just sit with and and take to the horses. But I wonder, just to kind of bring some focus to it, if you could share with us maybe one mindset shift that you got from today and one action that you'd like to take after today.
Okay, so the shift, the fact that I am conflicting myself between what my business does and how I'm trying to sell it is something that I really need to sit with. Because that makes 100% sense. The fact that I try very hard with my purpose and energy to create positive activities. But something is just blocked. And that kind of is something that, as I said, I need to think about. One action I'm going to take is that when our call is finished, I'm going to go and sit with my horses. But this time I'm going to take a notepad and just see what comes up for me. Because as I teach people presence and being connected to nature and being receptive and just listening and being open is where I potentially need to spend more time. And I certainly need to do that today to get the clarity that I need to move forward. So this has been extremely timely. But I'm very upset with you that you didn't do it 6 months ago with me.
Well, let's not get into linear time versus circular time. Maybe I am doing it.
Fair enough.
Who knows? But yeah, that sounds like some, a really beautiful and powerful next step. I sort of wish that I could hover in the background somewhere and listen in on the conversation, but it's not for me. It's for you. And I really want to thank you, Julia, for coming and working through this sticking point with us today, because I think you've touched on something that's really central to creating a regenerative work life, whether that's a career path or a business, which is, so often we get stuck in an old way of doing things, in a sort of corporate way of doing things, and we just sort of assume that that's the norm because it is the norm, that's what we see all around us. But when we're building something that's very different, that's rooted in different principles, we have to learn to do things differently as well. We have to do things, it's not just a sort of regenerative is not some sort of tick box for our business or for our job. It's a whole mindset, it's a whole way of living and approaching our businesses and our careers. And I think you've really helped others in your exploration today. So thank you for being part of this.
It's an absolute pleasure.
And just to finish us off, if someone is, and I'm sure they will be, having listened to this conversation, keen to find out more about you and your story and what you do, where is the best place for them to go?
So I guess the website's probably a good place to start. I'm also quite active on LinkedIn. So the business is called Alteza People UK. We're based in Staffordshire. And the website address is that. It's altezapeople.co.uk. People can get in touch with me on there to find out a bit more about me if they wish to do so. But also to perhaps catch up with some of the videos. And I guess these are the kind of things that I work through with people myself, but I have neglected myself. So if anybody, and that goes to you too, wish to come and experience what it's like being around the horses, they'd be more than welcome to pay us a visit.
Wonderful. And I will put links to your website and your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Julia, go and have that conversation with your wonderful horses. And thanks for joining us today on the Work Life Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
In the days after we recorded this session, I noticed an absolute transformation in how Julia was showing up online. There was such a freedom and joy to her posts. There was a beautiful visibility around the horses and around Julia herself. And she was kind enough to get in touch to say how much this session had helped unstick her and move her forward with her business. Remember, you can book a regenerative unsticking point session for yourself. Just go to regenerativeworklife.com/sticking point. Thank you for listening to the Regenerative Work Life podcast. It's time to put what you learnt today into practice. Remember, you were called to this work for good reason. Nature needs each and every one of us, and you can do this. If today's episode has been helpful, please take the time to share it with someone who needs a little guidance in stepping out of corporate and into regenerative. Learn more about how I can help you find your vision for a work life filled with purpose, impact, and joy at regenerativeworklife.com and connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Alisa Murphy. I'll see you back here soon for the next episode.